Hello everybody, hope you're doing marvellously well. I'm big, I'm bad, and I'm dressed not in black, but in grey. We're back for another Fact Friday. So, a quick diversion. I have never owned a pair of IEMs, can you believe it? IEM stands for in-ear monitors. I'm sure you all knew that, and I didn't up until recently. But I met these great guys just for the NAMM show, and then went at the NAMM show to their booth. The company is called Stealth Sonics. That's Stealth Sonics. And they're really smart. In fact, one of the main guys that started the company is a doctor. And what they did is basically they took technology. This is so beautiful. They took technology that is super, super advanced in medicine and applied it to audio for us. So basically, look at these. These are molded to just my ears. Very, very excited. And as you can see, I'm just opening them up for the very first time. And I'm going to plug them in and give them a listen. It also comes, by the way, with a spare cable. Because if you are an iPhone or an Android user, of course, you want to have the mic as well. So this is a spare cable that comes with it. And I also like this little polishing rag and a bunch of adapters here and a little brush to clean it. So this is good when you're on a plane, you've got those other weird adapters. And then, of course, there's the adapter there's the 1/4-inch stereo adapter for console and IOs and all that kind of good stuff. So this is incredibly exciting. And I'm just going to plug them into an iPhone. So, if it sounds good on that, it's going to sound good on anything. I've never even worn a pair of IEMs. Can you believe that? Never. So everything is a first for me. Really surreal. Okay. Yeah, let's cut off the outside world.
Put the cables on top of your...
Cables around the back of my ears. Okay. Okay, I've been warned, and I'm now speaking really loud because I can't hear anything. I've been warned to turn the volume down because these are going to... Wow, it's really weird. Once they're in, they're super snug. Wow. Okay, now I'm going to go and pick... What should I listen to? What would Warren Huart listen to?
Beach Boys. Bee Gees.
I'm actually listening to Beethoven.
Morris Albert.
Really nice. It's a whole different experience.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I can see it. Look at that. You can actually see it. Oh.
It's amazing. I'm going to Elgar now. I'm listening to Nimrod by Elgar. Unbelievable. So good. Oh, wow. Yeah, they're tight. Once they're in, they're in. Wow. And no bleed. I was expecting to take them off in here. There's nothing. That's amazing. Wow. Stealth Sonics, you absolutely rule. Let me show you the logo, everybody. I feel like Christmas. Okay, there they are. There's the company, Stealth Sonics. Absolutely phenomenal. Blessed. Thank you. So please, as ever, you can hit the subscribe button if you haven't already subscribed. You can go to producelikeapro.com, sign up for the email list, try out a free 14-day trial of the Academy, and we have recently relaunched our podcast, and the podcast information will be, somewhere around about here. So please check out the podcast. It's a lot of fun, and I actually listened to the Joe Ciccarelli one the other day and had forgotten now, a year or two later, just how frickin' smart that guy is. He's incredibly talented. So please check out the new podcast. All right, without further ado, let's get stuck into this week's frequently asked questions. How do you deal with a vocal with too much harsh resonances? The type when you cut them out, the voice loses quality. Obviously, if you're just trying to get rid of specific instances of something, you don't want to globally apply EQ. A simple way of doing that, of course, that everybody knows already, is de-essing. De-essing is, as the name suggests, really super harsh S's and T's. However, it's not looking for those syllables. It's not looking for those consonants. What it's doing is basically just picking up excessive amounts of high end. So in areas like 3 to 5K or 7K, where it is really painful, it's sitting there and just doing a single frequency band piece of compression on that. So what do I mean by that? You could take that same principle and use it in any frequency. There are many, many fully sweepable de-essers that go right down to like 100 hertz, right up to 20K. So if you do have something like that, the Omni-Channel, for instance, by Andrew Sheps already has that built in. You could sit there and find that resonant frequency and pull it out when it's excessive. And then, of course, a dynamic EQ will solve your problem. Many, many people have great dynamic EQs now. And when a particular frequency becomes very bothersome, you can sit there and just pinpoint the area and only have it compress when it sticks its nose up above the rest of the sound. That is going to solve the problem for you. It's not going to make the vocal sound hollow, as you were saying, or loses the quality of the vocal. One of the other things that I really, really strongly believe is don't look when you're EQing. Don't look at your music. Don't look at your vocal. One of the worst things I hear in vocals is where every single frequency that looks like it's peaking is smoothed out. That is not a good idea. One of the characteristics of many, many singers is specific frequencies. Freddie Mercury, as you hear me talk about all the time, had a really powerful mid-range voice. He had so much projection and power. And I did hear a mix that had that mid-range pulled out and made him sound breathier and softer. And I did not like it at all. That's a very polite way of saying I pathologically hated it. It's like suddenly I've got this really powerful mid-rangey voice, and this arbitrary EQ had been applied and that had been pulled out, and suddenly that personality of the singer has been removed. So be careful. One person's resonant frequency is another person's character in their voice. One of the great things about modern plugins is the fact that you get to see the spectrum, the frequency spectrum from 20 hertz to 20K. You get to see it. So you get to see all these little boosts, peaks and troughs of the vocal. Just because you can see it and it's peaking in areas and going up to a 3 dB and dipping here doesn't mean that the perfect vocal is a flat blob. And I have heard that so many times when somebody's got their, I'm not going to pick out any one particular manufacturer, but there's obviously a lot that do this. And then they sit there and they try and tug down all of these areas to try and make the vocal sound flat. And guess what? It does sound flat, not flat even, but just flat and lifeless. So be careful. Solve problems that you hear. Don't solve problems that you're not hearing, but you're seeing. When your music comes on the radio, when you're driving in the car, you're not seeing that EQ point. You're hearing it. So remember that. We're listening to music. It's not a visual art form. It's a sonic art form. Hope you're enjoying that. Please go to Produce Like a Pro, sign up for the email list. Don't forget to check out the new podcast and hit that like button. What are your thoughts on using limiters on the master bus? When I'm mixing in the box, I will put usually an L2, which I find pretty soft, unless I want it to be super aggressive. I will put that across the master bus. It will probably pick up a couple of peaks. I'm usually getting 1 to 2 dB worth of gain reduction, but not consistently. It's not sitting there taking 2 dB off. It's just shaving off maybe a couple of errant transients that slip through. When I'm mixing in a hybrid fashion on my console, I don't use any limiting. I also find that my console's bus compression, the SSL bus compression, is a little bit more, it's a horrible word to use because it's so subjective, but more musical. I tend to find that the release time is just set just slow enough that it keeps those transients in check, and it has a very unique sound. When I'm mixing in the box, I'm doing it for a specific reason. What do I mean by that? What I mean is when I'm doing it in the box mix, I'm trying to get a very immediate, very modern, very loud slamming mix. I'm using all of the tools that are available, just mixing in your DAW. And so I might use limiting. I might use a lot more compression than I would use on a console, because that's the reason why I'm mixing in the box. If I wanted it to be a little bit more natural sounding and have it breathe and be a little bit more organic, like, I just streamed a couple of videos this week, and you'll notice I didn't do that much hybrid mixing using plugins. I let the console do the work. And consequently, the song is very open and a lot more natural sounding. But I don't always want everything to be like that. A lot of modern rock, a lot of modern pop is really loud and really slamming. So I'm utilizing the tools of the DAW. So I think differently, I make choices differently. The medium that I work in is based on the end result. If you want to get a big, loud, slamming mix, then yes, you'll probably find you're going to be using limiting. Not necessarily 5 dB, boom, taken down, so there's just a big blob of song. Not that, but you will be using limiting to tame those errant transients and to get that mix to sound loud. So don't be afraid to use it if it's what you are trying to achieve. If you're trying to achieve slamming, powerful mixes, then subtle amounts of limiting are very, very smart. Everybody does it. Again, though, there is no right way and wrong way, but make those decisions based on the music that you are trying to create. Would you mic a ukulele the same way you mic an acoustic guitar? Pretty much, yes. I mean, obviously, when you mic an acoustic guitar, which has a larger body, the sound hole is super boomy. And it's all low end. And if you put your mic right in front of it, it'll just be whoom. It'll just be a loud amount of low end. Now, a ukulele, I have one sitting around here somewhere, is about this big. And the body's about this big. There are obviously bigger ones. There's baritone ukuleles as well as tenors and sopranos and what stuff. But a baritone's a significantly bigger body. But it's still not a large acoustic guitar. So that sound hole on my ukulele is about this big. And frankly, the low end coming out of it is pretty minuscule. And as if by magic. So look, would I mic the body here? I mean, if I was wearing a strap on this instrument and I could get it in exactly the right place, maybe, but highly unlikely. The thing about an instrument like a ukulele or a mandolin is like, it's the whole sound. It's like, it's the sound of my fingers doing this, super percussive. It's the sound coming out of the sound hole, and it's the sound of the strings just vibrating, obviously, across the whole body here. So frankly, I'd probably take either a small or large diaphragm mic and just pull it back. Just pull it back and get an overall sound of the whole instrument. What you would call technically accent miking. I'm not close miking, I'm accent miking. So probably a little bit back here. Normally we put a mic, I don't know, about a foot away, 10 inches to a foot away here, and just get, because you want this. You actually want this. You want the sound of, that air, that is actually a really good part of the sound. It makes it really, really percussive and jump out of the track. So that's what I would do with a ukulele. Pull the mic back, so it's about a foot back. And if it is a little bit boomy, which I doubt, but if it was, then just move it a little bit away from the sound hole, maybe back towards the bridge of the ukulele there. I know this would differ from project to project, but in the ideal world, how much time do you devote to each aspect of the creative process as a percentage? Yes, in your question, you are answering it because, of course, every project differs. But as a rule, there is no rules, obviously. But if I'm working with a singer-songwriter, there's a piano player, then I'm probably going to really, really care about what piano I record and where I record it. When we did David's piano-based record a couple of years ago, when we built it mainly around pianos, we went to Harmony and threw some mics up the C7. It's a phenomenal piano. Anything we added on that came from basis of the song being inherently sound, because we took this beautiful piano and we got great performances, and then we sang on it, and then did whatever overdubs we wanted to do. We did some ambient stuff with Tim Pierce, for instance, and little kind of overdubs like that. But that's the way I would work. You know, if you're recording the fray, I played a fray track last week, breakdown for you. You've got a Mason and Hamlin. We got a beautiful piano. We kept it in tune. We built the song around inherently the sound of the piano with the drums and everything that worked around it. If you're an acoustic guitar artist, get an amazing acoustic guitar sound. Get an amazing vocal. Build the track around it. But if you're a rock band and you're a heavy band or a classic rock band, then you want a big drum sound probably, or a big 70s drum sound, you know, whatever it might be, you decide on the drum sound. Then you're deciding on what is the guitar sound. Is it AC/DC, so it's a little smaller maybe? It's, you know, it's Marshall, but it's not like a walloping lump of guitar. But if you're doing Alice in Chains and anything modern, then you're going to be doing, as Dave has been telling us, like, you know, sectioned off. I mean, he's using 3 amps on those guitars to get those massive, massive tones. So with that, it's that sort of thinking in mind. It's like, how do you have to decide what the band is and what they're about, what the art is about, to be able to make those decisions. For me, it's inherently what is the focus of the artist. If they're a rock band, then it's everything. Big drums, big guitars, bass with bite, singer with, like, you know, aggression, a microphone like a 67 or a 47 or something of that ilk, a tube mic maybe something that just has a little tiny bit of grit just to get that vocal to bite, you know, inexpensive tube mics, whatever. You're thinking all of these different things to add up to a whole. So there's really, in that instance, like with a great rock band, there is no one person that gets any more love or attention. The bass sound has to be massive. Like Dave Jordan was explaining about with the bass tone, you know, they were using sometimes 4 or 5 inputs. They had a bass amp. Sometimes they mic'd a bass amp with another bass cab. Then they had the DI, a Sans amp maybe at certain times. But most importantly, he was using that SGX night bass. And that is a huge part of that bass sound. And it's aggressive and it's bratty, and he used multi-effects with it. And it helped glue things together. You get my point. That's a bass sound that may have taken a day just to get right for an album. The guitars, the heavy rhythm guitars, maybe they took a day, maybe they took 2 days. The drums, maybe 3 or 4 days. The vocals, maybe it's a couple of days of trying out different microphones. The point is like, in a situation like that, there's not really any one thing that would get any more or less love. So for me, it's like, depending on the artist or the song, that's where you make the decision. Again, if it's a piano vocal driven project, the piano is going to be really super important. Make sure you record it well and you get the right piano. If it's an acoustic vocal driven project, make sure you get a beautiful acoustic guitar recording, and then you work around that. So I think, again, you've sort of answered the question in the question. It does differ from project to project. But if it's a rock band, probably everything in that song is getting equal amount of attention. It's just, the reality is like getting a great bass sound might be a day or half a day, where getting a great drum sound in a brand new room that you're not used to could be 2 or 3 days on a major record, maybe longer. I've heard people take longer. You might be auditioning 8 different snares. You might be changing out kick drums and toms and cymbals. Maybe you start off with dark vintage Zildjians. Maybe you want to go to Pisces for a bit more shimmer and you don't quite want the low mids that the Zildjians have. These are all of the things that make drum recording so varied. And it's not that you're having any more percentage of time to it. It's just the reality is you want to give every instrument the love and attention it needs. And just some instruments, by nature of them having lots of things that you hit, like a drum kit, are just going to take longer. And the room that a drum kit is in is going to take a darn sight longer to get sounding good than basically a bass amp in a padded closet. You know, so it's never about percentages. It's just about making sure that you bring the same effort and the same, attention to detail to everything that you do. Thank you ever so much. Hope you enjoyed that. Wonderful questions. Really enjoyed it. If you haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And of course, hit the like button and check out producelikeapro.com. Sign up for the email list, get a whole bunch of free goodies. And of course, you can try out the Academy. And we have a new podcast. Have a marvelous time recording and mixing.